A rich kid mocked his black teacher in front of the whole class, but what she did next left everyone speechless. Not even he saw it coming. Who even reads this stuff anymore? The voice came from the back of the classroom, loud, sarcastic. Far too comfortable for someone who just started school that week. Ms. Lena Harris paused mid-sentence, chalk still in hand, and looked up from the board. It was Tyler Grayson, 17, smug, arms crossed over a $400 designer jacket, slouched in his chair like he'd bought the building and was just visiting to check on his investment. A few students chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was Tyler. And Tyler was new, rich, white, and clearly used to people laughing when he opened his mouth. Tyler raised his voice and mimicked a thick Southern accent, her accent, and then the little slave boy said, "Yes, sir. I's gonna pick that cotton real fast, sir." He doubled over, laughing like he'd just killed at an open mic night. A couple of kids laughed again, this time nervously. Miss Harris said nothing. She just stood still, like a statue, except her eyes. Her eyes were on fire, not with rage, but with something deeper, something that made the entire room fall silent in seconds. No yelling, no slamming books, no sending him to the office. She simply turned, walked back to her desk, picked up a notebook, clicked a pen, and spoke. Tyler. His name floated across the room like a feather, but landed with the weight of a brick. "You'll be staying after class today." He smirked. "What for?" She looked up, smiling just slightly. "To start your assignment." The class looked around, confused. There was no assignment, at least not one she told them about, but nobody asked questions, not when Ms. Harris used that voice. It was the kind of voice that didn't beg for attention. It commanded it, not with volume, but with certainty. Tyler shrugged. "Whatever." But something in his voice cracked, just barely, like he wasn't quite as in control of the room as he thought. The bell rang 10 minutes later. Everyone scrambled. Backpacks zipped. Sneakers squeaked on tile. Eyes were everywhere except on Tyler. He stayed seated, watching her, waiting for the lecture, waiting for her to bring the hammer down. Instead, she opened her top drawer and pulled out a plain folder. No markings, no label, just old manila, soft from time and use. She slid it across the desk to him. "You'll open that when you get home, not before, and you'll come back tomorrow with your answer." He narrowed his eyes. "Answer to what?" She didn't blink. "To whether you want to keep pretending, or if you're ready to learn something real." He let out a short laugh. "Lady, I've been to 3 different schools in the last year. You think I haven't seen real?" "You've seen money," she said, her voice still soft. "Not truth." The folder sat there between them, like a live wire. Tyler didn't touch it, just leaned back, stared her down, waiting for her to fold. But she never did. And for the first time in a long time, Tyler Grayson didn't have a comeback. But before he could decide whether to throw the folder in the trash or actually open it, he'd learn just how serious Ms. Harris was and how far she was willing to go to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. Tyler didn't open the folder that night. He tossed it on his glass desk in his oversized bedroom in Sandy Springs, Georgia, where the lights dimmed by voice command and his Xbox sat under an 80-inch TV he barely played anymore. He scrolled through his phone, watched half a video, muted it, then stared at the folder. Still there, unbothered, silent, waiting. By midnight, he was pacing, not out of fear, at least that's what he told himself. He just couldn't stop thinking about her face, that calm, that confidence, the way she didn't even flinch when he mocked her. He'd seen teachers cry, seen them scream, get red-faced and overwhelmed. Miss Harris? She didn't break a sweat, and that annoyed him. The next day, he showed up early. Not to apologize, not even to talk. He just wanted to watch, see what kind of spell this woman had on the rest of the school. Because clearly they liked her. She walked through the halls, and students greeted her like she was a celebrity, not out of fear, out of respect. Seniors fist-bumped her. Freshmen smiled and waved, and every teacher who passed gave her a nod, a real one, not fake. He sat in the back of her class again, arms folded. This time, she didn't call on him, didn't acknowledge him, just kept teaching like he was part of the furniture. And the weird part? The lesson wasn't bad. They were reading The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois, but she wasn't just talking about the book. She was talking about the people behind it, the context, the history, the humanity. And the students, they were into it. Tyler noticed this kid, Marcus, he thought his name was, leaned forward like he was hanging on to every word. That's when it hit him. This wasn't just a class. This was her room, her space, her rules, and somehow, even without raising her voice, she ran it like a boss. He stayed after again, folder still untouched, in his bag. Miss Harris didn't ask. Instead, she handed him an envelope. "This," she said, "is your next step, if you're serious. I haven't even looked at the first one. That's your choice." He rolled his eyes. "This a game to you?" She looked straight at him. "No, this is work. The kind of work you've never had to do because people like me had to do it for you." There was no malice in her voice, just facts. That night, Tyler finally opened the folder. Inside was a photo, black and white, an old man in a worn suit sitting on a bus bench. Underneath it, a single name, Walter Brooks. On the back, one line, "Find him. Listen. No phone, no recording, just you, a notebook, and ears that are finally open." But Tyler wasn't ready for what Mr. Walter Brooks would tell him, or how it would hit harder than any punishment he'd ever faced. Tyler didn't ask for a ride that Saturday. He didn't want his dad's driver, the sleek black Range Rover, or any of the usual comfort. He took the city bus instead. Just like the note said, he had to transfer twice. The last stop dropped him near the edge of East Point, Georgia. No fancy shops, no craft burger joints, just tired buildings, faded signs, and sidewalks that cracked like skin left out in the sun too long. He walked 3 blocks until he spotted the bench from the photo. There he was, same suit, same posture, same stare. Mr. Walter Brooks, 86 years old, skin like leather, but eyes sharp. Too sharp for someone who was supposed to be retired. Tyler approached unsure. "Mr. Brooks?" The old man didn't move. "You the boy Lena sent?" Tyler blinked. Yeah, I guess." "Don't guess. Either you are or you ain't." Tyler nodded. "I am." Mr. Brooks finally looked up. "Sit." He sat. No small talk, No pleasantries, just silence. And then, "You ever been called boy by a grown man who knows your name?" Tyler shrugged. "Not really." "I have," Mr. Brooks said. 53 times by the time I turned 16. 38 of those by men in uniform." Tyler didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. "I marched with King once," Mr. Brooks continued, "but only once. Got cracked across the ribs by a cop with a baton. Never marched again. Didn't mean I stopped fighting. I just got smarter. Started organizing from the inside." Tyler leaned in, finally curious. "Ms. Harris said I should listen." Mr. Brooks smirked. Did she now? "That woman's got more sense in her pinky finger than most folks do in their whole body. You messed with her, didn't you?" Tyler looked down. "Didn't think she'd actually do anything," he muttered. Mr. Brooks gave a slow, raspy laugh. "She didn't have to. She sent me." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper, yellowed, delicate. It was an old newspaper clipping. "Local teen wins. State debate. Demands curriculum. Include black authors." The photo was fuzzy, but there was no mistaking her, 17-year-old Lena, with thick glasses and a serious stare. "She's been fighting for this longer than you've been alive, boy." Tyler ran his fingers over the paper. "She's different," he said. "No," Mr. Brooks corrected him. "You're just used to teachers that let you get away with things." They sat for nearly 2 hours. Mr. Brooks told him about his mother being fired for speaking up at a PTA meeting, about walking 5 miles to the black school because the bus didn't stop for them, about the sound of metal chains in jail holding cells where he and 50 others were thrown, for sitting at a lunch counter. "History," Mr. Brooks said, "ain't something you memorize for a test. It's something you carry on your back, in your blood, whether you like it or not." When Tyler left, the folder felt heavier in his hands. The next Monday, he walked into class early. Miss Harris was already writing notes on the board. Tyler placed the folded clipping from Mr. Brooks on her desk, gently, like it was something sacred. She turned around. He didn't say anything. She didn't either, just a small nod. Not for approval, but acknowledgement. He took his seat. When the bell rang, she started class, like nothing had happened. No mention of the visit, no pat on the back. But on his desk was a new envelope, smaller this time, with just a location written on the front. Montgomery, Alabama. Civil Rights Memorial Center, Saturday, 10:30 a.m. But this wouldn't be a conversation on a bench. What Tyler was about to walk into next would shake him in ways he couldn't prepare for and break down walls he didn't even know he'd built. Tyler barely spoke the whole 3-hour drive to Montgomery. His dad had offered the private jet, even the Mercedes. Tyler said no. He took the Greyhound. He wanted quiet. He wanted distance. And maybe, deep down, he didn't want to be seen. He arrived just past 10, the sun already harsh against the stone steps of the Civil Rights Memorial Center. A security guard pointed him toward a side entrance. Someone had clearly been expecting him. Inside, it was cool, quiet, heavy. Every hallway whispered stories. Every photo on the wall felt like it was watching him back. He met Ms. Harris near the entrance to the main exhibit. She was dressed simply: jeans, a plain green shirt, a crossbody bag. No clipboard, no notebook, just her. "You're here," she said. Tyler nodded. "I am. This isn't a tour. It's not a school trip. You don't get extra credit, no grades." "I get it." She looked him over once, then started walking. Tyler followed. They walked past the wall of tolerance, names glowing softly on a digital screen. They stopped in front of a granite table, the Civil Rights Memorial, etched with names of those killed during the movement. Miss Harris didn't say a word. Tyler read the names: Medgar Evers, James Chaney, Viola Liuzzo. He lingered on one. Denise McNair, one of 4 girls killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, 1963. "How old was she?" Tyler asked quietly. 11. He looked away. They moved on, more displays, more names: Emmett Till, Jimmy Lee Jackson, Bayard Rustin. Each name came with a photo, a voice, a body, a story. "This is what you joked about, Ms." Harris said. Not harsh, not angry, just honest. Tyler felt it in his throat. "I didn't know," he muttered. "No? You didn't want to know?" They entered a gallery, walls filled with images of fire hoses slamming into crowds, police dogs lunging, protesters face down on the ground, blood on pavement. Then a video, a black woman, older, speaking into the camera. Tyler watched. She spoke about trying to enroll her son in an all-white school in 1962, about walking past jeering crowds, about holding her child's hand while people spat at them. Tyler turned to Miss Harris. "That was you." She nodded. "Why didn't you tell the class?" "Because they don't need to know my trauma to understand the truth. But you needed to." They stood in silence, and for the first time since he transferred, Tyler wasn't performing. He wasn't sarcastic. He wasn't detached. He was listening. She handed him a small notebook, blank, lined. "What's this?" "Start writing. Anything. Everything. Reactions, questions, lies you've told yourself. Things you never questioned until now." He held the notebook like it might break. "I've never done this before," he said. "That's why you need to." They sat together in the courtyard after, no talking. She sipped tea from a thermos. He opened the notebook and just stared at the page. Finally, he wrote, "I used to think history was boring because it wasn't about me. But maybe it was. Maybe it always was. I just didn't want to see how." He didn't show it to her. Not yet. On the bus ride home, Tyler looked out the window. Not at his phone, not at his reflection, but at the world. Different now. The graffiti on a passing bridge, a mural of Rosa Parks on a brick wall, a street sign named after someone he'd never noticed. He opened the notebook again, wrote 3 more pages before the bus even left Alabama. That Monday he walked into class 5 minutes early. He asked if he could read something aloud. The room quieted. Even Ms. Harris tilted her head. Tyler stood, pulled out his notebook, and read, "I used to think I was better than the people who lived the stories in our books, because I had money, because I had options. But now I see they didn't need money. They were the lesson, and I was too proud to learn it." Nobody said a word, not because they didn't care, but because for once he did. But Tyler wasn't done yet. What he had to say next, in front of the whole class. would turn that silence into something unforgettable. Friday morning, Ms. Harris's classroom was full before the first bell rang. Word had spread. Even students who weren't in her class showed up early, leaning against the back wall, whispering. Everyone had heard what Tyler Grayson was about to do. He stood in front of the class, a folded piece of paper in one hand, his notebook in the other. No slides, no fancy intro, just him standing in front of people who, a week ago, didn't expect anything from him except a snarky comment. He cleared his throat. "I didn't write a paper," he said. "I wrote something else." Ms. Harris sat at her desk, hands folded, watching, not judging, just there. He looked around. "I used to think I knew everything. I didn't." He opened his notebook and began. "When I walked into this school, I thought I was doing you all a favor. I thought public school meant easy, meant soft teachers, meant jokes that wouldn't get me kicked out again. But then I met Ms. Harris, and she didn't yell. She didn't punish me. She invited me. She gave me a chance to hear voices I'd ignored, people I'd never think to talk to, stories I wouldn't bother learning. Mr. Walter Brooks looked me in the face and told me about the day he stopped marching because his ribs were cracked open by a police baton. He told me, this is history, not the kind in books, the kind we live, the kind we bleed. At the Civil Rights Memorial Center, I saw a name, Denise McNair. She was 11, and I realized something. The joke I made about slaves, that wasn't a joke. That was me proving how little I knew about the world. The truth is, I was scared to admit that I didn't know what I didn't know. But Ms. Harris made me look. And once you see, you can't unsee. He paused. The room was still. Even the usual loudmouths sat quiet. Tyler looked up from the page. I thought power meant being louder than everyone else, but it's not. Real power is listening and letting it change you. He folded the page, tucked it in the back of his notebook, and sat down. No one clapped, not because they didn't care, but because they weren't ready to break the moment. Harris stood, walked slowly to the front. She looked at the class, not at him. What you just witnessed, she said, is growth, not perfection, not redemption, just a step. And sometimes that's enough. Then she turned to Tyler, her voice even. You showed us that it's never too late to learn. But now comes the hard part. He tilted his head. What's that? Living it. She turned back to the board and started writing the day's lesson, like nothing unusual had just happened. The rest of the class followed, but some of them looked at Tyler differently now. Not as the rich kid with the attitude, but as someone who'd finally shut up long enough to listen. But the story wasn't over, not yet. Because after the final bell rang and the hallway emptied, Tyler had one more thing to say, this time face to face, just him and Ms. Harris. The final bell rang. Backpacks zipped, desks scraped. Laughter spilled into the hallway like water breaking through a dam. Tyler didn't move. He waited until the last student was gone. Miss Harris was erasing the board, slow and steady, like always. He walked up to her desk, notebook in hand. She didn't look up, just said, You did what I asked. That matters. I didn't come for credit, he said. This time she looked at him. I came to say thank you. She sat down, folding her hands together. That was brave, she said. Tyler shook his head. No, it was late. It should have come sooner. You were raised to think you were already done learning. He looked at her, eyes serious. I'm not done. I know that now. She gave him a small smile. Then you're ahead of most adults I know. There was a silence, not awkward, not heavy, just real. Tyler pulled a sheet of paper from his notebook and laid it on her desk. It was the photo of her from the newspaper clipping, the teenage version of her, glasses and all. Below it, he'd written, "Thank you for fighting for a classroom that could hold both truth and grace." Harris picked up the paper, took her time reading it, folded it carefully, then looked him in the eye. You've still got a lot of work to do. I know, he said, and not everyone's going to forgive me as quickly as this room did. I don't expect them to. Good. She stood, walked to the window, looked out over the parking lot where kids were piling into cars, heading into their weekends. Then, without turning around, she said, Go earn it, Tyler, with your life, not just your words. He didn't say anything back. He just nodded, turned, and walked out, this time with both feet on the ground. Because the best apologies aren't spoken, they're lived. And sometimes the person who teaches you the most isn't the one yelling in your face, but the one who refuses to lower their standards just to make you comfortable. If this story made you pause for even a second, ask yourself this: who in your life has tried to teach you something you weren't ready to hear? Maybe it's time you listened. And if you're in a position to teach, do it with the strength of Ms. Harris, patient, firm, and unforgettable.